Hello? Hello, is this 911?
The number you have dialed is not in service at this time. Please go fuck yourself and try your call again.
Nice.
I thought that was good. I thought we channeled the essence of this episode.
Yeah, it's not quite as bad as being told to take your own life by the 911 dispatcher, which, according to this show, is a possibility that could happen.
Could you imagine? Could you imagine you just dial 911, like having like a cardiac like emergency or something, and they just go kill yourself, and then they hang up.
That'd be kind of like what our Queen Gloria was doing in Awful People.
I know. Ugh. A heart attack? So unoriginal. Call back another time with something new.
That'd be so, like, if this show was just a tiny bit meaner, I would have loved if this show was like Glee level Ryan Murphy, they would have had her tell at least one person to kill themselves.
The show needs to be just like a little bit more evil. Just a little, because it's so earnest, and I just like need to swap out like 5% of the earnestness for just like 5% evil. And then I think we'll hit like the truly magic ratio.
I think sometimes Tim Minear does go there a little, so to speak. One of my favorite lines of season 8 so far has been that part in early on in the season when Bobby still is not captain. It's still Gerard, and like everybody's coming to him with their problems, and Buck has that line where he's like, it just makes me really uncomfortable. You know, Gerard, he calls me his little buddy and he touches me, not like that. It's like so much more ridiculous than what I expected them to say, and like that's one example of them feeling like more leaning into like
that's kind of what connects with a lot of people. Like that's what sort of makes Glee have a lot of longevity, or American Horror Story have a lot of longevity. Like the meanest seasons of American Horror Story, like season 1, season 3, like the bitchiest seasons are like the most iconic and the most memorable. And so you'll see like those compilations of, you know, so and so out of context 10 minutes straight of Madison being iconic, you know. So I have a story with this episode because I have a bit of a background with this episode. I really like this episode a lot.
This episode being season 2, episode 14, Broken. Written by Juan Carlos Coto, directed Bradley Buecker, we're not sure, sorry.
We don't know how to pronounce your name, sorry buddy. Come on the pod and tell us. But I have a background with this episode because it was the last episode that I watched in 2018 before my relationship imploded and I stopped watching the show.
Wow.
And then when I was catching up in 2024, I think this time 2024, I was like watching it and I'm like, I am like flashing back to a year ago. I picked back up on this episode because it's the last one I remembered watching, and so I figured to myself I might as well pick back up where I left off. I need a refresher. And so I actually think I know this episode more intimately than I do any other episode of the show.
Wow.
Which is very strange to think about.
Were you like crying while watching it the first time?
No, but I did cry at a certain point in this episode, and we will get to where that was. But it was not for mourning a relationship that wasn't that good to begin with. No shade.
But yeah, this episode, I think it's interesting. You know, it's the first one since the Maddie kidnapping episode this season. Am I right, guys? And it's interesting to see the show get back to kind of its regular rhythm. And this is one of a genre of 911 episodes that I really like, which is some crazy shit is going down at the 911 dispatch episodes.
Yeah.
We get these a lot. There is this one. There's the one where there's like a massive blackout throughout the whole city, and I think the dispatch is affected. There's the one where the dispatch center gets taken hostage.
The most iconic one, probably.
There's the one where the dispatch center is on fire.
Yeah, of course.
They're always going through it. And I think I just find it exciting because we spend a little less time typically at the dispatch than at the fire station, so it always feels like a little fresher to me.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like the dispatch, it's like middle way between the 118 fire station and Athena's cop house or whatever.
And we don't care about Athena's cop house very much.
No, we don't care about them. But also, like, it seems like the cops on this show, unless you're counting like Danny Nucci and Athena's boss, there aren't a lot of like named side cop characters. But at the dispatch, we get Sue Blevins, we get Josh, we get Terry later on. Spoiler alert, we get May, we
Terry
get Eddie.
episode.
I feel like dispatch is one of those places that the show can fall back on as like mining for untapped potential if needs be. You know what I mean? So I'm always happy when we get like a good dispatch episode, because like we don't get a lot of time with Terry, we don't get a lot of time with Josh, we don't get a lot of time with Sue. And I'm happy to spend time with them. I love Terry. You know I love Terry. We love Terry on this pod.
We do.
This is a good Terry episode.
The episode opens with a very funny scene, I think.
Yes.
We have this little family pulling up to their new house with a U-Haul. Again, I was getting uncanny flashes to season 8 just because we just saw Eddie drive off in a U-Haul. But anyway,
you thought Chris was going to pop out?
Anyway, this family is pulling up to their new house. It's a dad and his 2 young kids, son and a daughter. And, you know, the son runs into the new house like, ooh, I'm going to go pick out my room or whatever. And we see the dad like fondly and sadly looking at a picture of the obviously dead mom in this equation. And, you know, he and his daughter are like, oh, I miss mom, but, you know, this is what she would have wanted.
He tells his daughter that the reason he bought the house is because his mom, not his mom, her mom, the daughter's mom, had entered remission. She had cancer, presumably. Right. But also it could be something else like lupus or something. I don't know. Remissive diseases. They don't specify exactly what it is. But this was her dream house, and he bought it while she was in remission. Then the cancer or whatever came back.
They're having this nice exchange of like, yeah, this is what mom would have wanted for us, and we're going to get through this together. And then behind this guy, every house on the block just fucking explodes. And, you know, this is all happening like in sequence. Like that house explodes, that house explodes, that house explodes, and then what do you know? Their new house explodes with their son still inside. I know we just had that thing where we were like, oh, 911 should be a little meaner. I feel like this is a great example of
it's so mean.
This is pretty mean to have it be like, oh, mom is dead, but we're gonna get through this, and then just boom, your son just exploded.
And you know that house was worth like $1.5 million or something.
Oh, yeah.
Like the mortgage has to be kind of insane.
Big. And they're in LA.
Like fire bursts out of the sewer and knocks a garbage can into a car that gets fucking thrown off the road and into a fire hydrant. It's a very chaotic scene. And so he goes to call 911, and it says the number you have dialed is not in service. Please check the number and try the call again. And he does the iconic line, check the number, it's 911. And then the title card.
Yeah, not only is every house on the block going up in flames, but also 911 isn't working. So that's our little hook for this episode.
Iconic hook for the episode. So energetic, and such a great way to like get back into like the rhythm of the show after sort of the event episode that was last episode. I thought it was really well done. But after the title card, we flash back to 5 hours earlier.
A thing this show loves to do.
Yeah, just tease us with like the third act climax and then give us Buck and Maddie looking at houses.
Yeah, Buck and Maddie are having breakfast or something. They're out at a restaurant and they're discussing moving out. Buck has said that he's found a new place, and Maddie's like, oh, for you? And Buck's like, no, I was thinking for you. Like, don't you not want to live in your house anymore where your evil ex-husband came and almost killed you? And she seems to think that like Buck is overreacting a little bit.
I have something both homophobic and gay to say, which is,
okay,
Buck was never a straight man. What?
You know, I had some moment in this scene where I thought that too. I think when she starts talking about going on a date with Chimney and he's just being so like gay best friend for her. Bisexual man best friend.
It's so gay best friend. I mean, like, I just can't imagine. I'm thinking about like what other like piece of media has a scene where like a straight guy goes to like pre-work brunch with his sister to look at apartments and talk about her relationship. That feels like
Yeah.
it's like, it's homophobic of me to say that, but it's also so true.
I mean, you're kind of looking at it through the lens of not necessarily like in real life, straight men aren't allowed to do that, but more like in the shorthand of mainstream television, would a straight character do that?
Right.
Usually not.
It's like, no, like she'd come over to like show him apartments while he's working on his deck or something. Like that's
While
how
he's
these
running on the treadmill or lifting weights or eating a steak.
That's how these like network TV writers operate with like, because like, and let's be very clear about something. There have been progressive gains made in all forms of storytelling over the last couple of decades. But when it comes to network television writing, especially in a genre as culturally conservative as a procedural, a first responder procedural, they tend to write, this is just based on raw observation, I don't have any data to back this up, of course, they tend to write straight men the same way they did in the 80s, except mildly less bigoted.
Mildly more nice.
But they're still working on the deck. They're still working on the deck.
Buck queer investigation aside, Maddie is having this thing where she really feels like she's ready to get back to work, but people in her life are still kind of walking on eggshells with her, and she seems to just want to move on. She wants to, finally forget about this stuff that's happened to her. And we cut to Chimney, who's in his apartment, talking to Hen, and he's actually where Maddie is going back to work. Chimney is still off of work because he's still recovering from his stab wounds. Classic Chimney thing to be doing. And he is doing the Marie Kondo method. He's like looking through clothes and being like, does this one spark joy? No. And Hen is kind of asking him about his budding relationship with Maddie, which apparently they're still trying to make it work. They're going to try and go on a date tonight. So we cut from Chimney and Maddie, this sort of cross-cutting back and forth, to Bobby at the fire station is giving a presentation to a class of school children. It's like they're on a field trip to the firehouse so that the fire captain can tell them about 911 and about being a firefighter.
We have a small buddy moment at the top of the scene. Yeah.
Yeah, Buck and Eddie are standing on either side of Bobby, both like straight mogging for no reason. Like they're both just like staring right down the barrel of the camera, like serving so hard for no reason.
As they often do. As they can often be found doing.
As they often do. I'm sorry. Apparently pronouncing the medial T like means you're a white supremacist or whatever that person said in my YouTube comments one time.
I can't even do the medial T anymore. Because of woke. But it's Harry's class. It's Harry's class.
It's Harry's class. Athena's son, Harry. He's in the audience. Bobby is calls on him once, and it's clear that Harry's very excited to be here and to like have this in with Bobby. And Michael and Athena are in the background. Eddie and Buck mention that Bobby takes these talks very seriously, which is funny. Seriously. But I guess not to be dark, but like given that he is someone who accidentally killed his kids via building fire, he probably is passionate about children and fire safety, at the very least from a personal perspective.
I love that you went right to Bobby Nash, killer of own family and arsonist. I went to Bobby Nash, lover of children everywhere.
Okay, well, yes, that's obviously also true, but mine is more specific.
That's true. I should defer to arson and killing of family from now on. And I shall.
It's on my mind a lot, okay? It's kind of hard to forget.
Never forget. He talks to the kids about CAD. This is going to be important, so write this down. It will be on the test. CAD stands for Computer Aided Dispatch. It helps callers, when they call 911, it routes them, after they put in their address, to nearest emergency services. So nearest fire station, nearest hospital or police dispatch or whatever.
Okay, I loved that for some reason Eddie was like on tech duties during this scene. They've got Eddie in the background like manning the laptop manning the laptop and like pulling up all these kind of complicated graphics of like the way the 911 dispatch system works. I was like, wow, is this like a crumb of Eddie characterization? Is he like a tech? Well, no, he's not a tech guy, because there's that whole thing at one point where he like distrusts technology.
No, here's why he
God
hates
forbid
technology.
it be consistent.
No, Jane, it is consistent. Here's why he distrusts technology, but he has these skills operating this type of thing. He had a traumatic experience working as a stage manager in high school.
That's great. Part of my headcanon about Eddie and Shannon in high school is that Shannon was a theater kid, but like in a cool way, like a Shakespeare theater kid.
Shannon was a performer, and they were doing a production of A Midsummer Night's Dream. Okay. Eddie was stage stressed manager.
Out. He would run a show like the Navy, you know? He
like
would be a great
ship.
Stage manager.
He'd be amazing.
One of those stage managers who's so stressed out all the time, but does a really good job because of it.
But one day, during a performance, the mics went out. And oh my God, Eddie took that so personally.
You think that is the whole foundation of his distrust of technology?
They had to do the performance open air like they were at the Globe, but they were cramped in an auditorium, so everyone had to project.
So that's like he realized that actually the performance became better unaided by modern technology, and he was like, this is why I don't trust modern.
Because
I thought you were going to say
it's
like
always better with just like the raw power of like humanity.
And Eddie knows that from a theatrical perspective. But I thought you were going to say, like, they tried to automate his job. They tried to introduce, like, some high school stage manager, like, robot or something. And you know, of course, he beefed with that. And now he hates automation. Either way, it's a great bit of backstory.
I think it's philosophical, and I think it speaks to his love of the arts.
Yeah, no, that is endearing him to me more.
Yeah, I just think he has a great love for, someone take him to the UK, take him to a show at the Globe, and just watch him have his life, get his life, Eddie Diaz.
Well, then there's also a moment when at the end of Bobby's talk, he's gonna like go do another activity with the kids, and he says, "Follow Buck and Eddie," and I just wrote in my notes, I would follow them anywhere.
And the way, especially with how jubilant Buck is being, like getting the kids to follow him, he would be a great like a little preschool teacher or something. He'd be Mr. Buck, and
wasn't that his alternate universe job in the Buck Lightning episode?
What, who's a teacher?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, I'm going to be honest. Like, that episode was so boring to me. I was like half paying attention to all the details.
It's a terrible episode, but it does kind of make sense that if he weren't a firefighter, he would be like working with kids. Or maybe working at like a animal shelter.
God, if his parents were more religious, he'd teach Sunday school. Oh, that's like the worst arc. But, there's a little like fun moment where after Bobby's finishing explaining CAD, he's talking about the way that the signal gets eventually transferred to the 118. Hen, like it pounds like the siren and goes like, emergency, Harry Grant forgot to finish his homework, and everyone laughs. It's funny. It's just so sweet. It's like a little moment of like everyone no. We mostly get these moments with Christopher, actually, of the 118 kind of co-parenting one of the kids. And it's sweet seeing it with like someone else too, with Harry.
It's very cute, but also if you were one of the other kids in the class, wouldn't you be so annoyed?
Oh my God, I'd be so jealous.
Like, we get it, Harry. You know them.
I'd be so jealous. I would hate Harry for that, honestly. I would bully him.
Yeah.
Athena and Michael are talking like off to the side, because obviously their son is there. And their involved parents. Yeah,
nobody else's parents are there, but I guess because it's like Bobby's firehouse, they were like, we'll just tag along as unofficial chaperones.
And then Athena, she fucking says that these tickets are harder to get than Hamilton when they're joking about getting him into the little presentation.
Which, talk about a more dated reference. That one was like 4 years after the Hamilton craze. Although people were still pretty into it, like right up until about the first Trump presidency. But I mean, this would have been well into the first Trump presidency. So yeah, there's not really any excuse.
There's no excuse. It's like, I don't know. Was Hamilton really that hard to get into at that point? It's like, it's 4 years on.
I mean, probably. I think yeah, maybe not hard to get into exactly, but probably the tickets were still pretty expensive.
I mean, I'm sure, yeah. I think they're still...
But also, like, it was on tour by then. Like, they could have just gone and seen it in LA.
Yeah. I don't know.
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
like, it reminds me of that joke from the other two where they're like putting together like the fundraiser event, and they have the cast of Hamilton performing. It's like 2022, and the woman organizing it goes like, "What? Still?" Harry is by one of the fire trucks with his buddy. Let me take that again. Harry is by one of the fire trucks with his friend, and Buck passes, and the camera like stops on Harry and everything. You see Michael sort of coming up behind him.
Right.
Harry's basically talking about like how cool Bobby is, how heroic he was during the earthquake and everything. Meanwhile, he and Michael just like handed out water bottles and blankets at their church or whatever. And then Michael overhears this and doesn't say anything and just walks away dejected.
Yeah, it's like, come on, like you can just, I don't know. It's a funny moment. It's a very TV kind of moment.
It is. Your 10-year-old son makes you feel insecure and like less of a man because this new guy who he, really like admires is a firefighter, and you're just a boring architect. Oh, how tragic.
Yeah, you were texting me earlier of like, I'm really not liking Michael in this episode. And I think I would share, I don't like hate him. I don't think he's being like, I do understand where he's coming from in this episode. And like, we'll get to that. But like, he does like eventually, whatever, he makes peace with Bobby and everything. But it's just, I agree that like, I feel like the show just doesn't always make him a super relatable character. I feel like that's part of the reason I don't connect with him much, is it's just like, partly he's so disconnected from the drama in a way that the rest of the characters aren't. He just, he never felt like that much of a relatable character to me. They don't show us a lot of super likable Michael moments to me. Like,
yeah, there isn't a lot of like light moments with him. It's mostly like when he's like having dad drama, and like that's, I guess, that's fine. Lots of people have dad drama.
It's fine, but we don't know that much about him outside of that, so it's kind of hard to latch on to, I think.
Like, does Michael like water parks? Does Michael like play football with the family at Thanksgiving? Does Michael have like a unique collection of stamps or bottle caps or something? Like, just give us something like kind of like weird and quirky that's like fun to and like we can like relate to have an in with the character. Even if I don't collect stamps, I can see his stamp collection and be like, oh, well, I also enjoy things, so I get you in this moment.
Yeah, he is a very like boilerplate kind of character. I feel like he's just kind of like, I feel like he could be a character on a lot of different shows. We just don't see a lot of unique things about Michael that much. Not to be like the Michael hater club.
No,
but
I mean, like, that's so depressing because his hook as a character was so good. It was so juicy. It was a suburban dad leaves his wife because he has an epiphany that he's gay, and that's where his character and his relationship with Athena starts. There's so much you can do with that, and they chose to like not do a lot with it, which for me was like kind of like disappointing. I'm like, they're like, explore it, especially because Rockman Dunbar, he's a really talented actor. I think he is.
Yeah,
I think he's a really
good.
Gifted actor when he has good material.
Look at it this way. He is good representation because he's proving that even gay people can be boring.
That's true. This show has two of those, him and Tommy Kennard. Wow.
That's like their favorite type of gay man to represent, in fact. Except for Josh. Josh is a fun gay guy.
But no. As a gay guy, Josh is boring to me. I'm sorry.
I get that.
I think he is boring. I think he's just feminine and hammy, but I think he's also boring.
His whole personality seems to be like that he has pop cultural references and like is kind of a ham.
Yeah, it's like oh, you follow Dua Lipa on Twitter and you're really obsessed with the new Hunger Games book. Like I know who you are. I know exactly who you are.
No offense,
Josh.
I don't know if he's like young enough. I don't mean like he's old, but I just mean like, I don't know if that's his generation. I feel like he follows like Kylie Minogue on Twitter and is
Britney
really
Spears
excited for
and,
the new Harry Potter TV show, you know?
oh God, no, because you know he would be so offended if you said that, but like it would be undeniably true.
Come on, I think that was a pretty good read on Josh. I think
so
that's about
true.
exactly where he is.
It's so true. That's exactly what he is, and you nailed it on the head. And he would look at you like you had just like, you know, murdered a child in front of him.
No, I don't think so. I think he'd say, "What's wrong with liking the new Harry Potter series?"
And it's like, well, Josh, let's break it down for you.
Yeah, like, first of all.
He would take that very personally, too.
I love that we haven't even gotten to a part of the episode with Josh, and we're already roasting Josh for some reason. Is this like our homophobic episode? Why are we just like going through all the gay characters we hate? For the record, we don't hate Josh.
We're on the eve of Gay Eddie. And so I think like once Gay Eddie happens, he's going to be the most interesting gay, not only on this show, but possibly in like the modern television landscape. Because Eddie...
I hope it turns out to be true.
Once they confirm him gay, he's going to be like the most like nuanced, complex, like gay man on network television.
If they don't fumble this.
If they don't. But he's going to be like a saga as a man. He's going to be like a saga of a man. And like he's going to have so many layers. And like there will be video essays. There will. You'll make them. You know?
Yeah. Well, just to be clear, we don't hate Josh. No, we love Josh. We're just kind of acknowledging like his cringeness, which is part of why we love him.
I want to make it very clear. I'm actually like somewhat protective over Josh. Like, you know, he is gay coworker core, and I can make fun of that. I as a gay man with who has been the gay coworker and has gay coworkers. This is my culture. And I'm allowed to talk about this very flippantly. And so are you, as the gay coworker yourself, as someone presumably with gay coworkers.
I work at an organic grocery store, so practically every one of my coworkers is the gay coworker.
Exactly. So this is our culture, Jane. We are allowed to talk about Josh and roast him over the coals, but that is our son.
All right.
That is our baby boy. We love Josh Russo. That is our friend. No, spiritually, I just want to take Josh and I just want to like wrap him up in a swaddle and just like, I don't know, feed him green juice or whatever gay coworkers drink, you know.
Of course, yeah.
Like I just want to I want to mom this guy. I want to mom him so bad. I love Josh. But anyways, Michael takes Harry very personally, and then next scene, boom, Josh. There we go.
Josh. Yeah, we're back at the dispatch center, and Maddie is taking what are clearly supposed to be like the boring 911 calls. And these things are, you know, she's on the phone with a mom who's worried about her baby who has a fever. And Maddie's like, it's just a fever of 103. Like, just wait to see if it goes down. And if not, just take him to the emergency room.
Maddie's nursing skills come in handy quite often with this job, I will say. Like, because the next one too is also a medical emergency. Like this guy's choking, and so she like teaches the woman over the phone how to do the Heimlich, and it works. And they're fine.
It works immediately. And Maddie almost seems a little disappointed, which I thought was a funny detail. She's like, oh, okay.
It was like he was choking on a shrimp tail or something, and she's like, "Are you sure he's not allergic? Do you need EpiPen?" Like,
she has a weird line where she says, "Oh, good. The last thing your husband needed was a shrimp tail stuck in his throat." And I was like, why did she say that?
Why did she say that?
It's like not a joke.
It's not a joke.
But I loved that. It feels so Maddie to me. It's just like a random thing she would say, kind of corny, kind of.
It was just one of her like small, like just little micro moments of like girl failuredom that I think like she embodies on the micro scale so well. Even though in the macro scale she is absolutely a girl success.
Right.
Like just like she has these little girl failure moments, and I love her for that. You know, the last thing he'd need is a shrimp tail stuck in his throat. It's like, yeah,
Like, imagine being on the phone as the person who called, like, yeah, he almost died. Like, I'm hanging up now.
Yeah. Have a good day.
I do love just anytime Maddie is, like, a little bit goofy, whether it's,
Yeah.
like, her actually making a joke or her just, like, saying a weird, awkward thing.
It's like that meme, like, oh my god, she's so goofy. Love her.
So crazy. But
Mm-hmm.
Josh comes over and is like, wow, you're back at work already. Maddie takes another call. She starts taking a call. It's some guy who has the brakes went out on his truck and like he's injured. Maddie's about to send some fire trucks or whatever, an ambulance, and suddenly the power goes out at the whole dispatch center and all the
Mm-hmm.
calls get dropped, which is bad. I don't think I have to tell you that's bad.
That's not good. I mean, this is like a key infrastructure of the city of LA. And so when that goes down, things are probably going to hit the fan, right?
Yeah.
And there's like kind of this idea that like, because Sue Blevins like immediately says CAD is down, like we just learned about CAD. And so it's like,
Everybody refer back to your CAD notes.
you're thinking maybe the theme of this episode is, are they over reliant on technology? Have they forgotten to how to live in the analog world? And that is like kind of an idea in this episode, but it doesn't really come up a whole lot.
Yeah, they don't seem to really be trying to make a statement with it. It's kind of just exploring the fact that they used to have an analog system, which is kind of interesting to see.
Yeah,
Just on that level.
because you don't really think about it. It's like one of those things of like, how would this operate outside of a digital landscape? And Josh is there to break it down for you with his note cards: red for fire, white for police, yellow for medical.
Yeah, they say we're going old school. And then also, of course, with the computers down, we find out the power didn't go out completely. It's just that their computers are down. So yeah, he's got the card system going, and they have to use physical paper maps because, of course, their location tracking services don't work with no computers. And that's kind of the most interesting part to me, because I'm like, oh yeah, if I suddenly was put in a situation where I had to use like paper maps for something as where location is as important as in a situation like this, I would probably be totally lost.
They have to manually radio all of the stations themselves. They have to map it all out themselves. And in the 118, Bobby says they're in tactical emergency mode.
TEM.
TAM.
They're in TEM, everybody.
He sort of mansplains what that means, but the gist of it is that they're going to be roaming around the streets of LA looking for dangerous situations, just being on
when a
call
man
at all
explains
times.
Anything, it's mansplaining.
He does. He breaks it down for everyone in a very like simple, specific, like bullet point way.
It's true. Hen like makes a joke about like, oh, we're not your class of kids or whatever.
And he apologized. He says sorry. And so it's like, well, listen, you're going to disagree with a woman in Women's History Month?
You're right. It is still Women's History Month, and I don't know.
It just struck me as a little mansplaining. What can I say? I'm not trying
I'm
to
sorry,
cancel
everybody.
Bobby Nash.
I'm so sorry. I am taking accountability right now for disagreeing with the idea that Bobby was mansplaining in this scene. In the process of doing that, I ended up siding with the man and not with Hen. And I would never, ever intend to not side with Henrietta Wilson.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. This is what a feminist looks like.
This is what a heninist looks like. A hen supremacist.
That sounds dangerously close to meninist for my
It does
for my taste. So I'm gonna leave that one alone. But they're basically just gonna roam through the streets. And so they're driving around in the fire truck. I don't know. I think it's like an older fire truck or something. I don't know why.
Yeah, I think maybe they don't actually really mention why. They just mention that it's old. So I assumed that maybe they're using the older trucks because like they have the old-timey like communication equipment in them or something that is more suited for the situation they're in.
So that makes sense. Bobby says he's been in one of them once because back in St. Paul.
He says once in St. Paul, where I am right now, a blizzard took out the power grid around the call center and backup generator, which I was like, once again, this is why 911 Minnesota would have hit so hard, is because you have all these opportunities for stuff like that. I'm choosing to believe that he was specifically talking about the great blizzard of There was one really famous one that happened in like 1991 or something. I don't know if he would have been old enough to be.
Yeah, I was thinking, is he old enough for that?
I don't know.
Maybe.
But basically, let me look up Twin Cities blizzard. 1991. Yeah, it was the Halloween blizzard.
Did they still go trick-or-treating after the blizzard?
Honestly, knowing Minnesotans, people were probably trekking through that snow, still trick-or-treating.
Getting the candy.
This is what sucked about growing up in Minnesota, is that most Halloweens, you would have to wear a big jacket over your cute costume because it was too cold out. Okay. According to the wiki, Bobby was born in 1968. So he would have been 23 in 1991. So like he would have been really young, but he could have been a firefighter at that point.
Maybe that's why he remembers it, because it was a formative memory for him.
Yeah, he was still a probie.
It was a probie. But then Hen has been in like 3 of them, because apparently the city of LA distributes funds so inefficiently that like sometimes this shit just happens. In
her words, this thing is held together, the like whole, I don't know exactly if she's referring to just like emergency services or what, but it's held together by spit and, what did she say? Chewing gum and spit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something like that. The point is, they're on the streets. They are on the scene. And I'm just thinking about like this. They used to do this all the time, right? Like I think Sue Blevin says they did this for 20 years. And it's just like, it sounds like, imagine having a life or death emergency in like 1976. That sounds awful.
Right. You just can't be sure like if and when emergency services are coming. Well, so I watched in preparation for my 911 video, I was kind of looking back at the history of like the first responder procedural. And so I watched the first episode of Emergency! Which was a 1970s first responder show.
I think you talked about that in the video, didn't you?
Yeah, their opening episode is about a real life historical event, which was in the 70s in LA. And I think in other places throughout the country, but this is when LA did it. Before a certain point, they just didn't have paramedics. Like that was just a job that didn't exist. You had like hospitals and you had firefighters. And the firefighters could go rescue people and bring them to the hospital, but nobody there was trained to do any real first aid. And so finally, they like passed a law to make this new program that would like train firefighters to do emergency medical services and like stock certain life-saving things like defibrillators and stuff in their ambulances. And so that would be another thing if you were calling 911 in 1976 or whenever. If you were like having a heart attack, you might just have died because nobody would have been there to like who knew how to do CPR or like
oh my god
had a defibrillator or whatever you needed.
It's one of those things you don't think of because like baseline medical training is so standard issue.
I said that. I don't know everything about it. They probably did have like basic first aid training at a certain point. They probably realized they needed to do that. But yeah, they didn't have like good equipment and they didn't have very in-depth knowledge as far as I know.
But like even like nowadays, like when I did my cert class and I got first aid training, I learned how to use a defibrillator. I know how to use a defibrillator. And like I just can't even imagine like a firefighter not knowing how to, work a defibrillator. They don't know how to do chest compressions. They don't know.
Maybe the technology of something like a defibrillator was still kind of early back then. I don't really know.
I just like that's crazy to me. Like I'm so glad we live in for as awful as this time period is. I don't want to live in a time before paramedics existed.
I know.
But we get a end of the world needle drop. It's the end of the world as we know it. Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah, that was great.
Chimney is like, he's staying home, right? And he's watching the news and it's all about this. And he says, this is going to be the best show ever.
Yeah.
And then we get a montage of the 118, gallivanting around town, trying to put out fires, but it is woefully inefficient. They roll up to one. Athena's there.
I think this montage was missing a few good old like cat tree rescues.
Yeah.
I think there's an episode in like season 4 or 5 where they do a montage like this. And at one point we see Eddie getting a cat out of a tree. And I feel like you need a couple frivolous calls in between all the chaos.
They roll up to one call. Athena's on the scene, and so is like the two 17. What was Tommy's brigade? It was like the 237 or something.
I think it is the 217, something like that.
And they're already on the scene. And it turns out both Maddie and Josh had assigned different stations to the same call, and Maddie's had gotten there first, and she just didn't tell Josh. And so there's like a little moment of, guys, duplicate calls, screen them. Okay, we need to organize here. It's like, oh, this system seems really inefficient is the word.
Yeah.
And then the FBI rolls up.
Okay, I have a huge bone to pick with this storyline. Okay. So, okay, what happens in this scene is these three people show up, kind of youngish, like people show up at the dispatch center. And at first, Sue Blevins is like, oh, we're not giving tours today. Like, go, tell the reception desk that you can't take a tour today. And they're like, no, we're actually from the FBI. And Sue's like, oh, okay. And they say, we're here to investigate whether this was like a ransomware, a hacker attack where they're looking for ransom. And I could have sworn every time I rewatch this episode, I have this like false memory of these three people turning out to be twist villains.
Oh my God. So did I.
Right?
I thought they were going to be like hackers themselves.
Yeah. And that they're trying to get the ransom. And I think most likely what's happening is I'm mixing it up with the 911 center gets taken hostage episode, because I think those evil guys also like are undercover at first. I think they're posing as cops or something.
Yeah.
But also I think the other reason both of us thought this is that this storyline feels like that's what it's building up to. It really feels like that should be what happens.
Mysterious, young, kind of shady people, and like they're not recognized.
The fact that they're kind of young, they don't look like FBI agents. Sue Blevins didn't even recognize them as being FBI until they told her. And then throughout the episode, they keep talking about ransom, and like the 911 center people don't really buy it. They're like, I don't think that's what's going on here. But these people keep hammering home like, no, it's definitely hacking and it's definitely ransom.
They never show their badges either.
Yeah. You're like, oh, these people they're like the actual hackers who did this, and they're going to find a way to like wire the ransom to them. That's obviously what's happening here. But then that doesn't happen. So I'm almost like, was there a draft of this script where that's what was supposed to happen, and then they like hastily cut it out?
Yeah, maybe they thought that would be like too convoluted, like, and they wouldn't be able to get that across while also doing the thing with the house fire, and so they wanted to zero in on the house fire because it's a firefighting show, and we have to have at least one fire fought per season. So maybe they just like that was a casualty of a former draft, and they had already casted the actors, and they already had some footage, so they couldn't just do away with the whole storyline because it wouldn't make sense. And also Terry's actor needs something to do. God bless him. He's in the scene. We get a Terry moment. We get several Terry moments in this episode. I love you, Terry. I'm gonna never stop loving you, Terry.
We actually get what I'm pretty sure is the first scene where both Terry and Josh are on screen together. So that's a big moment for their ship. Jerry moment.
Jerry moment.
That's kind of a good ship name, actually.
It is. And I think it's a fun little crack ship.
We usually come up with bad ones, but theirs is pretty good.
Jerry. Oh, Jerry. But I will say, what took me out of this scene was not just that I thought these people were Russian hackers. I thought for a split second that the woman FBI agent was the same actress who portrayed Yael in Degrassi Next Class.
Oh my God, she does look like Yael.
And it was entirely because of the hair. And also
the hair
the face,
and the glasses.
And the glasses.
The hair and the glasses and kind of a round face. Oh my God, that's so funny.
It was so Yael core to me. It was like, oh my God. What are you? Did you immigrate? Congratulations or something. I don't know. Nice to see you.
It's funny you should say that because I recognized her. I probably was subconsciously also thinking about that because now that you mention it, I'm like, oh yeah. But I recognized her. This girl was on Shameless. Did you ever watch Shameless?
I love Shameless. Yeah, I saw the first 5 seasons.
Yeah. Do you remember that storyline? It's in like season 2 or 3 when Frank decides to pretend that Carl has cancer so that he can enter him in the Make-A-Wish program and like, I don't know, profit is what he hopes will happen. But he's like not able to get anything cool. Instead, he's only able to send Carl to this like kids with cancer camp where Carl meets this camp counselor played by the Yael-looking girl in this scene.
Oh, shit.
And it all culminates in this very inappropriate moment where the kids with cancer convince her to, like, flash them, like, because they're like, we're gonna die, like, we want to see boobs or whatever. And she does that, and she gets caught, and she gets fired. And that's, like, the culmination of that storyline. But that's her. Oh,
my God. A diva with a filmography.
Literally.
The scene goes from the FBI people to there's this couple at this hotel downtown LA, and they're, you know, the Uber's outside. The woman is in labor, extremely in labor. Her water breaks as they're walking through the lobby, and it becomes clear the baby's coming now.
Yeah, they're not making it to this Uber, let alone the hospital.
Definitely not. Like, she needs to lie down on her back. She's dilating. Like, you know, it's like, this is it's coming now. This is an emergency. Worst day ever to have an emergency.
Hashtag worst day ever.
Hashtag worst day ever. And so they call 911. Obviously, that service is down. It's 911. and so eventually, you know, the 118 gets, they get through somehow, and the 118 gets, like, Maddie, Linda routes them to this place it's on San Vicente.
San Vicente, yeah.
And they roll up to the spot that Linda provides them with, and it's just an empty lot underneath a freeway. It's like, where's the baby? Where is it? And so it turns out, because Maddie like looks at it and at the map, and it turns out there's 3 San Vicentes. There's 3 of them in LA, and it takes like another person stepping in, dispatcher of the year, Maddie Buckley, to be like, hey, they're actually here. We're gonna send them here. And by the time they get there, she's crowning.
Yeah.
She's fully crowning. The baby basically has an arm out. You know,
it's funny because the guy is like, why did it take you so long? And Bobby says, like, we're experiencing a system-wide outage. We apologize for the delay. And I just thought that was funny that, like, oh, even firefighters must have, like, customer service moments, you know?
Oh, yeah, 100%. Because I know that honestly, like, I just, in that moment, I put myself in the guy's shoes, and I got kind of pissed off. Like,
it would be infuriating in the moment.
I work in the service industry. I've been on both sides of this kind of situation. I understand the full range empathically of you know, what's going on. And I'm still going to be pissed off about it. I'm still going to be pissed off. Where were you? My wife is having a baby, okay?
Yeah. And we'll see very soon that, like, she actually really could have benefited from help being there earlier.
Yeah. This was an interesting callback. I was surprised that they didn't have Bobby and Buck delivering the baby, since they did such a good job of it last time.
At the yoga studio?
At the yoga studio. Remember season 1?
True.
Hey.
True. But Hen gets in there and starts delivering the baby. This woman is in a quote-unquote geriatric pregnancy, which, of course, the unflattering way they have to refer to pregnancies in women over, what, like 35 or 30 or whatever
or something,
it is.
Yeah.
And they are, I don't know who they is, but they're so bad when it comes to, like, making women's health sound not horrible and embarrassing. I was thinking this.
Who's they?
Not to be TMI, but I got my first pap smear this year, and I had always been really nervous about it, which is why I think you're supposed to start getting them at like 21, and I got my first at 24 or whatever. But a part of the reason I was so freaked out, in addition to it being like this super invasive procedure that you have to do if you have a vagina, but I also, why do they call it a pap smear, you know? I would be less intimidated if it didn't have, like, the grossest, most off-putting name.
Yeah.
Like, why are we talking about smearing anything? I don't like that. I don't like that. Can we not just call it, like, I guess you can call it a pelvic exam. I prefer that.
Yeah, a pelvic exam seems more, like, medical. It seems more official. And it also seems like it has, like, the aura of, like, this is a routine procedure, nothing to worry about.
Yes.
The doctor is a professional.
Pap smear is like, why would you call it that?
It feels, it worsens the invasive effect, actually, yeah.
That and geriatric pregnancy are like, come on. Come on. I'm already a woman. I'm already, like, being kicked while I'm down in a lot of areas of life. Why do we have to also make everything sound so embarrassing? that concerns our bodies. Just a PSA, if there are any people out there who are also afraid of getting their first pap smear, I was worried about it for so many years, and then I had it and it was like literally fine, and it was like over before I knew it. So like it depends on what doctor you see, but like, you know, that stuff is important because a lot of people die from preventable like cervical cancer and stuff like that. So make sure you have your HPV vaccine and make sure you get that pap smear, yes, even if it has a gross name. You know, advocate for yourself.
But anyways, this woman gives birth, right? And the baby, it's a beautiful baby boy, very healthy.
We should say, as Hen is delivering this baby, Sonia, our expecting mother, kind of starts freaking out. She starts panicking a little. She starts to sense that something is wrong with the baby, even though nothing apparently is. So then, yeah, she delivers the baby. It's perfect. Mm-hmm. It's like obviously like a 6-month-old baby, but you know, par for the course on TV.
Yeah. It's like there's no mushiness in the head or anything. It's
a big baby. Like, it's not, you know, have you ever seen like an actual newborn baby? They're like the size of they're like smaller than a football, you know, they're real small.
Yeah. But I didn't see an umbilical cord. I don't know if they didn't have one. All I'm saying is I didn't see one. So
they might have just not bothered. Everyone claps when they deliver the baby, which that is like true to life. That's
yes. Well, I mean, it's delivering a baby. It's like, how could you not?
Yeah, people eat that shit up.
Yeah.
But, you know, baby's fine. Everything's looking good. But then as they try to pass the baby over to Sonia, she starts fading out. You know, her blood pressure plummets and her pulse stops. Yeah. And so they get her in an ambulance. They get the baby in a separate ambulance. I guess they're not allowed to have them in the same one. And Hen is furiously doing chest compressions.
Hen has been doing chest compressions for 12 minutes, and she has determined that it looks like what it actually is an amniotic embolism. And so she's hemorrhaging internally. Amniotic embolism.
Aneurysm.
Embolism.
Aneurysm.
Embolism.
Okay.
Amniotic fluid embolism is a rare and life-threatening pregnancy complication that occurs when amniotic fluid enters the mother's bloodstream during or around childbirth. This triggers a severe allergic reaction.
Yeah, but they said aneurysm, and that's also a thing.
Amniotic aneurysm? That doesn't make any sense.
They said that. Did they not say that? Wait.
They said embolism.
Okay, I Googled it earlier and clicked on this link that I'm now seeing says amniotic fluid embolism.
Embolism!
But I fully heard aneurysm and I wrote in my notes aneurysm, and I know I Googled earlier aneurysm. What the fuck?
I had subtitles on. I was watching it. I was reading it. It said I think
No, I believe you. I just am like, wow, I can't believe I did that, and then argued so hard with you about it.
It's Women's History Month. Women's History Month. I support women.
That's like when I was just thinking about, there's another moment in this episode where they mention like all the water we have left is what we have in the truck, and I was remembering that conversation we had where I so condescendingly to you was like, there's no fire hydrant, like how are they gonna get water? And then you were like, they keep water in the truck, and I was like, no. It
reminds me of that edit of that Eric Andre meme that's like, why would you say something so loud yet so wrong?
Yeah. No, that's why I have to be careful on YouTube, because I usually am pretty confident about like the things I think I know. And so like if I ever get anything wrong, I feel like I look really stupid because I usually say it pretty confidently.
Well, I don't think you look stupid. I think it's a very easy mistake to make, because personally, and this is just me speaking from my own personal life experience, I'm not a doctor, and if someone asked me to sit down and tell you the difference between an amniotic embolism and an amniotic aneurysm, I would probably just like walk into the other room.
I guess I'm just finding it funny that I was so sure it was aneurysm, because I literally did also do the same thing you did where I looked it up while like at the time I was watching the episode. So I do know what it is. I just totally wrote it down wrong. Yeah, she's gotten some amniotic fluid in her bloodstream, which can cause like cardiac arrest for whatever reason. That's so unfair that just weird bullshit can happen when you have a baby. They get Sonia to the hospital, and I guess they've just like been doing compressions long enough without a pulse that the hospital is just like, we're not gonna take her, like, fuck off, she's dead. And a very Captain Gerard coded hospital.
I feel like at least the doctor
it's not worth it.
has more of a say in that, right? At least the doctor gets to call time of death.
The doctor's more qualified than Gerard to make that call, for sure. And the husband rolls up in his ambulance. He's with the baby. You know, Bobby's like, I'm so sorry. In like a final act of saying goodbye to his wife, he places their baby atop her chest. And miraculously, doing this makes her heart start beating again, which I feel like in some situations on a show like this, when something miraculous like that happens, I would be like, that's so unrealistic. But for some reason, like the bond between like a woman and her baby, and like all these like things about like skin contact and sort of the precarious time that is after childbirth, I was buying it. I was like, you know what, sure, like maybe putting the baby on her bare chest would bring her back to life. There's just, I don't know, childbirth feels so like mystical and crazy to me, and there's so many health. This is like one of the many things that makes me be like, I'm never having a baby. Back to women's health and how unfair it all is. But like, you can just die for no reason when you have a baby, you know? This is one of the many examples.
It's like the greatest stress and trauma your body can go through as like a natural part of like...
You can apparently just have an amniotic embolism and just like your body decides that it's going to kill you by spitting some of the baby liquid into your bloodstream. Like, no, thank you.
I will say, though, I was buying it. And so, like I definitely, like, I mean, the way I cried, you know what I mean? I cried hard.
Oh, yeah. It's a beautiful
when this
moment.
happened. It's very beautiful. It's really well done, too. And, like, I know it's, like, I guess you could, like, be cynical and say it's, like, cliche or whatever. But, like, I think it worked, and I'm not saying you, I mean like an editorial you know what I mean? But like,
it worked for me too.
Yeah, like it worked. I appreciated it. I'm like, oh, a happy ending.
Yeah, for once.
I remember those.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. And like when you know the doctors are obviously like, oh my god, she has a pulse, like get her in there. And so they rush the lady into the hospital, and then the 118 left behind, Hen, just like kind of collapses out of like emotion. And you get it, because she was like the one who delivered the baby. She was giving the chest compressions. She was very invested. And then to witness this like medical miracle would be very emotional. I have to say, Eddie then has a line. The deadest possible expression on his face, and with the deadest voice you've ever heard, says, "That was amazing."
It sure was.
Like, okay, thanks for chiming in, Eddie.
But you know what? Buck picks up the slack as he often does, and he goes, "No, that was a miracle." And it's like, oh,
yeah, he looks at Eddie very like flirtily, and that kind of makes up for it.
Yeah, it makes up for it when you have a buddy moment.
It was just so funny to me. Like, poor Ryan Guzman. I think he was probably trying to go for like a kind of serious emotional tone, but to me it just read as like completely flat voice, completely dead eyes. I was enjoying like this whole episode. I know I talk shit about Eddie a lot, like his writing, but when he's just like around in an episode, I think he really is one of my favorite characters, because when he's just around in an episode, I'm like, yay, Eddie. Like, I was enjoying watching him work the laptop earlier. I'm enjoying him in this scene. Later in the episode, he has kind of a big moment. I was enjoying it.
Yeah, he's good as a ascended extra, if you will.
Yeah.
But we go from there to, okay, so there's been this thing that we've neglected to mention, but Maddie is planning their do-over first date, and Maddie,
right,
as a liberated woman, is taking the charge, planning it, right? And so she's having her gay bestie Josh give her suggestions for different little restaurants and locales and eateries that they can, you know, sort of go for. And in this scene, right after this, they're sort of like testing different options on the paper map. Great use of city resources, where, you know, she's like, I don't want something too serious. This place is lighter and more fun. It's like, I don't know about it. And I was just thinking to myself, how does Josh know in such intimate detail all of these first date spots when he himself never goes on dates?
Listen, we don't know at this point that that's true. Like, he could be going on dates.
You know, but no, he isn't, though. I feel like if he was, I would sense it, and he's not.
Or he would like have sometimes you have like gay best friends on TV. I'm thinking of like Kevin from Riverdale. I feel like if they want them to be sexual characters, they will just have them always talking about like, yeah, I was cruising in the woods last night. That's what Kevin from Riverdale would say.
At least Kevin got a storyline for it, though. You know, Josh, I mean,
at least he did have things going on with him, you could say. Yeah.
I know Kevin is your least favorite character in the history of television, and I respect that.
That's not necessarily true. I just think he's like a kind of deeply homophobic caricature.
Which is so funny.
And when I found out the actor was straight, that made it even worse. I was like, oh, this is a sin. This should not exist. This is such a rambly episode, but again, there's lots to cut. So it's
There's
okay.
lots to cut. We get a Terry moment at Dispatch.
Terry moment. We get a little bit of Terry lore. We find out his last name is Flores, which I'm realizing maybe the writers of 911 are just kind of lazy when it comes to coming up with like Spanish last names, because later in the show Eddie gets a love interest named Ana, who is also Latina, and her last name is also Flores, which is also always weird to me because I had like a complex toxic friendship with a girl named Ana Flores in high school, so
Did you really?
that always kind of catches me off guard. Yeah.
Oh my god. Well, I'm sorry.
Right?
And that's going to be fun to cover when we get to her arc.
No, it's all good.
I do like that little headcanon that Terry and Anna are like brother and sister or something. Like, I feel like that would be cute. Wouldn't that be cute?
I mean, Flores is like a common enough last name, but like given that it's a TV show, it feels like if two characters have the same last name, they should be related.
Terry was the first instance of he owns Flores on 911.
True.
Anna was borrowing it. So, you know, good for also because Flores,
she's the derivative one.
Flores is a beautiful last name. It's a gorgeous last name. It's literally floral. It's a very botanical last name, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like that as Terry characterization. He's a very botanical man. He's kind of getting his ass handed to him by Yael.
Yes.
Of Degrassi fame.
They're kind of emasculating him because Terry is the dispatch IT guy, and he's trying to say like, well, I ran all my procedures and stuff that I can do, and the FBI agents are trying to be like, I know that you probably, do very well here, but, we're like fancy FBI cyber people, so we know more than you, and like, just stay out of our business, you like dumb hick IT guy. And yeah, it feels like a moment where like Terry is being given more narrative agency than we usually see from him. We're getting more of like Terry POV, which I appreciate because again, I like Terry. He could be a bigger character. No
offense to these three unnamed FBI agents, but I think Terry should have shot them all dead with a gun.
Yeah, no, they were being so annoying. But another thing in this scene that made me feel like this was supposed to be setting up a villain thing was that they have this line the FBI guys do where they're like, some of these cyber thugs can be pretty sophisticated. And that feels like foreshadowing that they're like gassing themselves up. Like, why would they be so complimentary of the hackers if they weren't the hackers?
That's totally true, actually. Damn.
I swear, my conspiracy theory is that there was a draft of this where they turned out to be the hackers and then they just didn't have that happen in the end.
So maybe they reused that idea when they did like the assault on the on Dispatch. And so I think maybe like they saw, this is like a lot of potential for storyline stuff, but also time. It's not going to make sense. And so they scrapped it and then they went back to it and they're like, oh, what if we like actually did a storyline where we got Josh out of the house? Right. Wouldn't that be nice? And they just picked it back up from there. Yeah, I like that idea. Mm-hmm. So we go from Terry sort of getting his balls cut off a little bit to Maddie and Linda. They're at the paper map of, the city. And Maddie notices a little like sort of anomalous little like pin placement. She's like, what's happening at 11th and Margot? And then Linda says, oh, it's just a small electrical fire, nothing to really worry about. And Maddie gets this little she gets like a hunch. She gets that little gleam in her eyes.
Classic Maddie.
I got a hunch. We don't really follow up on it for a while, but, just like remember that. Maddie has a hunch. So the 118 gets back from doing their rounds, you could say, around the city, putting out fires wherever they see them. And Bobby is walking through the station, and Harry is there. Harry is there all alone, all by himself. all by myself. And Bobby comes up. He's like, Harry, what are you doing?
Yeah, Bobby asks him, like, what are you doing here? And Harry says, I had a big fight with my dad and I ran away to here. I came here. And Bobby's like, I'm going to have to tell your dad about this. He's probably really worried about you. And Harry is like, no, you can't tell him. So Harry seemingly perceives Bobby as like a friend who won't like rat him out to his dad. And of course, who should come in but Michael, Harry's like, how did you find me? And Michael says, next time, don't tweet from your secret location. Guys, what do we think Harry's Twitter is like?
I hope, because it's 2018 still, or like 2019, and it's before what we're currently seeing on the platform. I hope he's not following any Andrew Tate types. I hope his Twitter feed is limited entirely to Roblox and Fortnite highlights.
I was gonna say, yeah, like Minecraft.
Yeah, like but not like Dream SMP, like right. Just like really this absolutely clean, like nothing, like no problematic creators. Like I just want this kid to be protected. Like he's watching. I mean,
he might be into Dream because we know that he watches YouTube, as per the Christmas episode where Athena said he watched a YouTube video about the go-kart he wanted.
Yeah, but I'm hoping he at least watches like a good person on YouTube. I'm hoping he watches like
he just watches reviews of toys on. He watches Ryan's toy review.
I was thinking like Ludwig, or like just like one of like the really like just nice like streamers that hasn't gotten any allegations against them. Maybe like I don't know what's Tommy in it or something.
He watches like Hank Green educational videos.
Yeah. What's that show they do? Crash Course. But I have a thing about this scene. Scene. We know that A Squad is very familiar with Athena. They love Harry. Everyone was like had a little co-parenting moment basically with Harry during the class. Everyone in the A Squad knows Harry, but we also know that their little friend group can be kind of insular.
Kinda at times, yeah.
And they were all out in the field. And Harry was just here. And nobody even noticed in their group that Harry was here until Bobby came back. And so for everyone else that was working at the fire station, did they just think it was one of those tragic moments of like a child being abandoned and left at the firehouse?
Right.
And they're like, oh, I guess we have to get in touch with like child services because we have another one going up for the foster care system. And it's like,
right.
Imagine like just being like someone who has no idea about Athena or her family life or whatever, and just like seeing this random kid.
Cap, we got another abandoned child.
This random kid just sitting all alone on the little, I guess, seats. What they were like little wall divot seats or something.
Benches, yeah.
Yeah, just like thinking, wow, that's horrible.
But Michael shows up to pick up his child, and he's real mad. He's like mad at Harry for running off. He's mad at Bobby for like really for no reason. He's mad at Bobby because he perceives this as Harry liking Bobby better than him, and he seems to be ascribing some of this to Bobby. He seems to be under the impression that this must mean that Bobby must be like, well, he really doesn't have a good reason to be mad at Bobby. And I do think this is all obviously coming from an emotional place and not really a rational one. And the episode does eventually acknowledge that. So it's not like this is really bad.
Yeah, eventually. But it's like, not like we get in with Michael's world ever.
Right. In this scene, and it's like I was saying before, it's just because, we know Bobby so much better than we know Michael, and we know, right, like we are seeing this scene, we know Bobby, and we also know that he has this specific backstory about losing his kids. So like hearing Michael like, make these really cutting remarks to him about like, you're not the father of these kids, like you're not a father.
Oh my God.
You really sympathize with Bobby. But like with Michael, like we just don't really know enough about him to really be able to relate much to where he's coming from. So I feel like the scene just kind of unfortunately makes you just kind of mad at Michael for like being so mean in this moment.
And it did. It worked on me. I got mad at Michael. I was texting you. I'm like, ooh, Michael's giving me the ick in this scene. I can see why you don't like him. Granted, you don't like him for very different reasons, but I was just getting really pissed off at Michael in this scene.
My like initial reason to dislike Michael was the biological clock comment, but it's kind of this whole thing of like I've said, we just never get quite enough of like Michael's storylines and Michael's POV in my opinion, to really get to like him much.
This is the episode C plot. This is the C plot of the episode.
And so when you see him really act out like this or be mean like this, you kind of have to just take it at face value. You can't really be like, oh, well, we know he's going through so much right now, because like we don't really know what's going on with him. It was actually reminding me a little bit of our discussion in our bonus episode we last recorded about how Eddie treats Buck in that one season 8 episode, where our problem was kind of like, it's hard to see where Eddie's coming from because the show is just not really showing us what's going on with him. So like it's easy to empathize with Buck because we're seeing so much of like, oh, he's suffering so much, he's so upset and sad right now. But like Eddie, they just don't bother to tell us like how Eddie's feeling. So it's kind of, when you see him being mean, you can't really read much more into it. You kind of just have to come to the conclusion that he's being really mean. And like I don't want to come to that conclusion, but the show's not doing enough to make me not do that. So I think it's a similar thing.
It's a relatability issue. You know what I mean? We don't get, we talked about it, but we don't get enough in with Michael to be able to relate to him in that level. So the show relies on, I guess, you having experience as a father in this scenario in order to properly empathize with him. And it's like, I'm sorry, I just don't. So I can't, and I won't. Like,
that was kind of the thing with Eddie too. It's like, it's not that you can't read into it more and say like, well, oh, realistically, like he's moving, he's probably stressed out and he's thinking about his drama with his son and stuff. But that's on the viewer to read into it to that level. It's not that the show...
No one better say anything bad about how Eddie was treating Buck in this episode because he was going through something and you guys just don't understand.
Nobody better say anything bad about how Michael was treating Bobby in this episode because he was going through something. It's just like... It's like what Justin was saying about doing the show's homework for it. It's like, yes, you can interpret it that way if you are willing to stay up late and do the homework, but it's not that the show is effectively communicating those things.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying this is like a huge problem with Michael. I'm just kind of tying these two things together. This is why it's harder to sympathize with Michael in this scene. But anyway, so yeah, I wrote in my notes, Michael's being pretty unreasonable, but I don't think that like wasn't what we were supposed to take away from the scene. You know, he does apologize later, so I think he was supposed to be seeming unreasonable, to be fair.
Yeah, that's true. I think like what the emotions we're feeling are what the show is intending. It's just unfortunate that this is like Michael's second scene of substance this whole season, and he is he is main cast, bewilderingly. He is main cast.
Yeah, that's why I'm so confused at him being billed as main cast. But good for him, I guess. I guess the actor must have gotten paid well.
Karen has had more to do, you know, so, and I'm not saying that because, you know, I love Karen. I'm just saying that as like Tracy Toms has been recurring cast for 8 seasons and Rockman Dunbar was main from the word jump. So that's...
Yeah, maybe it was like a contractual thing. But we cut from there to a woman driving, and her GPS is taking her in a circle. She's on the phone with someone, and they're like,
the way you said that was so funny to me. We cut from that to a woman driving.
It's a special... As if women can drive, am I right, guys?
No, my God, this was a special occasion. Finally, a woman who drives.
Finally, a woman who drives. I can't relate because I'm literally a woman who can't drive. I like have the sexist belief that women can't drive, but it's not based in like sexist unconscious bias. It's just literally my own life experience is that the main woman in my life, myself, can't drive.
It's based in projection, bro. It's
projection. Based in projection. I see a woman driving, I'm like, how can she do that?
Gender traitor.
So we
No.
see a woman driving, and
Okay.
her GPS is taking her in a circle. She's like on the phone with someone who is telling her like, yeah, all these weird things are happening with 911, like the computers all over the city are weird or whatever.
Yeah.
And she ends up crashing her car because it turns out she's in the neighborhood of
You know
the
what?
U-Haul family from the
Likely
beginning.
thing for a woman to do. Let's just say that.
True,
right now.
So true. Of course she crashes her car. Am I right, fellas?
Right.
She she crashes her car because, not just because she's a bad driver, but because the explosions from the beginning of the episode have started happening. And like, you know, like you said at the beginning.
It smashes a garbage can, to the side of her car, and she hits the fire hydrant.
She like crashes into a fire hydrant.
And so it's cool to see this from like her perspective, because it's like just like one of those little like subtle callback things. I love this. I love it when the show does this.
Yeah, we're seeing the events from earlier, but from another point of view. So then we see Chimney is watching this unfold on the news from his home, and he sees that no one is responding to this. Like, no firefighters have shown up yet because of the 911 outage. And so he calls Buck. As we know from season 1, Buck is always has his phone on the job and will always answer a call. So lucky for Chimney, he calls Buck. That was the right person to call.
Yes.
Buck picks up. And Chimney's trying to get Buck to get the 118 to respond, because he's like, hey, nobody's over here. This whole neighborhood just like went up in flames. You got to get over here. So Buck and the 118 go straight to the neighborhood. And yes, it is all on fire. We go back to the family from the beginning.
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood.
They're like, please help us. Our little son is trapped in this house that's on fire. And Eddie says, you know, we only have the hydrant is shot, I guess, because that woman crashed into it with her terrible driving. Ugh. And Eddie's like, all we have is the water that's in the truck, which apparently there are fire trucks that just hold water in them. My apologies. I was just laughing because that episode where I said, like, I introduced it in such a condescending way that I think it's extremely funny that I then was immediately proven wrong.
This is why I was so gung-ho, like sticking to my guns in that moment. Because,
as you should have been.
Because I remembered this specifically when they said that we only have enough water in the trucks for one house. And I'm like, I know this episode so well, okay? I know this.
Listen, guys, I do have some humility. I can admit when I get an embolism mixed up with an aneurysm, or when I say that fire trucks don't have water in them, or when I say that Ed Gein was from Plainville and not Plainfield. But you know what? What matters is the eventual correction that I will issue, not what I say in the moment that's wrong. So remember that.
It's better to beg for forgiveness than ask for permission. Yes, that's correct. There is a looming question sort of like as we go into this call of like, what the fuck just like infrastructurally is happening here? And so thankfully Chimney says to Buck, just to clear that up, he says, it looks like a gas main leak. And that is all we need. It looks like gas is leaking from like sort of the main gas source from like the pipes. And that's why all the houses and the sewers are exploding.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know if this was based on like a real life event, because this seems like unbelievably catastrophic. Like, is there any place where like the gas infrastructure could lead to the entire neighborhood, every house exploding at the same time? Because I hope not. That seems pretty bad.
I guess if the pipes are eroded enough, it could happen anywhere, which is terrifying.
It could happen to you right now.
I like that we're finally getting, again, a classic fire scenario. Boy is stuck in the house. The house is on fire. They need to get him out. Finally, they're fighting a goddamn fire.
Yes. Eddie seems to have taken a particular interest. It's not explicit, but you can imagine maybe he's invested in saving this young boy because he has a young son. And first, Buck tries to climb up to where the kid is. He's on like the second floor, and we can see him through a window. So Buck tries getting on the ladder, and you know, they're extending the ladder. Buck's almost there, and then the ladder breaks. somehow, which I guess they did foreshadow by saying that this is an old truck and that, sometimes they have problems. So the ladder breaks. Luckily, Buck is able to hold on, but he like goes swinging. He's now hanging from the ladder. So this is
incredible.
Bad. Everything is
grip
going
strength,
wrong.
I will say. And Chimney, watching at home, he has an idea because he hears in the report that they don't have enough water, and so he puts his thinking cap on, and we get okay, guys. I am obsessed with this because it brings the events of Hen Begins and Chimney Begins back into the fold of the main storyline. And so this wouldn't have made sense if we didn't have those backstory episodes. And so it's like continuity and it's cool and it's like lore and it makes the world feel big and I like it a lot. It works so well for me.
But guys, at what cost?
At what cost? At what cost? Because Chimney does have to pick up the phone, and who should be on the other end but Tommy Kennard with the water plane.
What's crazy about watching this season while watching season 8, I just feel like I've suddenly been cursed to have so much Tommy Kennard in my life. And we've gotten some comments lately
about our switch up.
No mean comments, but people being like, oh, it's so funny that you guys went from being kind of neutral on Tommy to being so anti-Tommy. And I guess I've been meaning to clear the air a little bit. Yes, in my YouTube video, I was pretty conciliatory to Tommy. I was like, yeah, I ship Buddy. I don't ship Tommy with Buck, but I was like, having seen season 7, this is fine. I thought Tommy's reintroduction in season 7 was okay. To be clear, I think part of that was influenced by when I was doing my season 7 rewatch. I was on a trip to London in August of last year, and I was watching it with my friends in London who hadn't seen much of the show, and they were really taken with Tommy in those episodes where he comes back in season 7. So kind of through their eyes, I was thinking oh, maybe this is kind of decent when he comes back. And then season 8 happened, and I think that's most of why I expressed in my video that I already in season 7 thought that his and Buck's relationship was a little weird. Maybe it's the actor, maybe it's the way he's written, but he comes off kind of cold, Yeah. And then there's season 8, and it suddenly becomes so incredibly off-putting, the coldness and just the awkwardness of this relationship. Once again, I don't know if it's the actor or the writing or what, but it is not convincing, and it's weird that every scene they have together is haunted by Eddie, who keeps showing up for no reason. And then, as if that wasn't enough, then we have the Halloween episode where it's do they even sleep in the same bed together?
Yeah.
It's just very weird. And then for this podcast, we rewatch the Begins episodes, and I'm really reminded of oh, Tommy was racist. And so for all of those reasons, yes, I have had a turnaround on Tommy. I also think I've been buddy maxing so hard this latest season, and I think just being in the shipper mindset, it does make you very kind of hostile to any competition for your ship. And I think that's why there's such, that's tale as old as time. This is why we have ship wars, period.
Yeah.
People just get very invested emotionally in these things. And the second competition is introduced, of course, you want to hate on the competition. So I try and be rational. I try to pay attention to the context of what I'm watching. And also there probably is a small emotional part of me that's just I don't like him because he's not Eddie, But yeah, all of that and more are why we have had such a strong turnaround on Tommy.
Yeah, I totally agree. I when it happened, I think I was so caught up in the buy Buck of it all that I would have been happy seeing him kiss any man. I wouldn't have cared who it was.
Kissing a cardboard cutout of a man.
As the storyline progressed, I was getting so continually bored by, I think you described him in our bonus episode as a stone statue.
Yes.
And I think that's correct. But what's strange is that in this most recent episode, most recent at time of recording, obviously there's another one that's going to air tomorrow, but when Tommy was reintroduced on the show, I actually weirdly warmed to him, not because he had fundamentally changed, although I did like that they let Buck fuck and it was a lot more explicit. than the rest of their relationship.
See, I wasn't crazy about that literally just because it was Tommy.
No, I could compartmentalize that because I also
Bless
knew
Aisha Hines for directing that scene in pitch
Yes.
darkness. I say she knew what she was doing, and that's hilarious.
But also because Tommy, I knew just like from the moment he got brought back on that he was not going to stick around. He was not going to stick around.
Yeah.
And then he was the first person
clear.
to have like the catalyst of like, yeah, sure. You weren't in love with Eddie. Oh, yeah, sure. Eddie's straight.
Yeah, you have to hand that to him for sure.
It's like the worst person you know just made a really good point.
A great point.
You know what I mean? And so so because of that, I think his legacy on the show will be warmer than it would have been for me had that not happened, which is strange because I was really dreading a Tommy reintroduction to the show. But I liked that it closed the book on it in a really sort of definitive way, and that it laid the groundwork for Buddy. So for that reason, when Chimney called Tommy up, I wasn't dreading Tommy's like presence on the show, even in the background. What I was feeling was just jubilance that that the show was like having continuity, and that the things that we covered in the Begins episodes were having some sort of consequence in the main storyline. So that's about where I am with it.
Yeah. And it's also like maybe because of the recent developments with Tommy, maybe you have like a little more closure where like there's less anxiety over like Tommy will be eventually a buddy romantic rival. Now it's kind of like, oh, we don't have to worry about that guy.
But also, I mean, like, I just love seeing Buck fuck men. What can I say? I'm a simple guy.
I appreciate that.
I'm a simple guy. I like seeing him fuck men. And also, I liked that Chim, when he called Tommy, he said he said it's Howie, because Tommy doesn't know about Chim's nickname. So that was a nice little bit of continuity.
He should have said, "Hey, seen any good Love Actually rewatches lately?
Seen any good monster truck derbies lately? Anyways, can you drop a fucking 800 gallons of water onto this burning like towering inferno? My friend's in there, and so is a kid."
Right. So that's the reason Chimney calls. Tommy apparently works in like the air support thing now, and the genre of firefighter who fly helicopters over fires and drop water onto them.
Yeah, good genre. But Eddie, back on the ground at the house, Eddie, without missing a beat, scales the drain pipe like a Spider-Man.
Right.
And breaks into the house.
So, of course, the ladder broke. So Buck went flying and wasn't able to get up there. So Eddie, without waiting for like, oh, let's get another ladder truck or whatever, Eddie's just like climbs up on that gutter, starts scaling it like the most impressive kid in gym class.
Buck says that it's like Spider-Man. It's like a Spider-Man act. Let's be honest. This is pure Catwoman core. Okay, this is Eddie channeling his inner Selena Kyle.
So true.
Because he breaks into the house
like
too.
Eartha Kitt.
You know, he was Eartha Kitt. Miss Julie Newmar, you look so good. You know,
it was kind of the way he scales that thing. You're like, I would love to see Eddie pole dance, but that's a story for another time.
Magic Mike 4, yes. Magic Mike the spinoff.
Literally, and then he would be following the Channing Tatum journey
with the fucking
of going from step up to male stripper
in the fourth one. But Buck says that if he ever did this, Bobby would yell at him. So it's like it's kind of funny that like Eddie as the probie is still expendable.
Yeah, well, that, but also it's kind of like Bobby. What Buck is getting at is like, oh, you're okay with it when it's Eddie. And I kind of like that they give Eddie this big like hero moment in this episode. And part of the reason I liked it is that for like the first time since the first episode of the season, it feels like it's calling back to his introduction in season 2, episode 1, when he's like super competent. And that's like his whole thing. Yeah. So I liked that it's like, oh yeah, another moment of Eddie just being like this crazy, like really skilled firefighter, because I feel like we don't always get that sense. Like he's always fine, but you don't often see like big Eddie like time to shine firefighter moments, you know?
Yeah, I feel like the Eddie we know most of the time, like 85% of the time, is like pathetic little sad puppy dog eyes Eddie who lives in a freaking little storage closet, you know? Like,
I live in a freaking little storage closet. Well, that's like his personal life, but you know, like on the job, he's kind of just like average, you know, not that he's like bad, but
he's just a guy.
yeah, he's just on the team.
Yeah.
They never really like single him out.
He has paramedic training, but he's never like particularly extraordinary. And so when he gets these little moments, it's like, oh yeah, he was introduced as the hyper competent guy that like threatens Buck standing in the firehouse.
Yeah, and he was like the army guy, like,
Yeah.
so I liked this. And so he like scales the gutter and then he like kicks in the window of the house. It's very heroic. He finds the kid's passed out. You know, he's not sure what to do because he can't get out through the window, like the flames are too high or whatever. And Buck on the outside, I thought this was fun, that Buck has this line where he's like, I can make that jump, I can help Eddie. And I just thought it was funny that Buck's concern is Eddie and not the child that is dying inside.
It's his Pookie Bear. It's his Pookie Bear is in there and he needs to like protect him.
He said, fuck that kid. I care about my boyfriend.
If it was between the kid and Eddie, Buck would go for Eddie because he'd rationalize it to himself as
he's like I don't even know that kid.
Mathematically, you know, Eddie can save so many kids, and that's just one kid. But if we lose Eddie, that kid's not going to save other kids.
But basically, we get word that Tommy is coming through on air support. So Bobby knows what's coming, and he's like, everybody take cover, like get underneath the trucks, because I guess when a firefighting helicopter dumps a bunch of water on you, it's like the pressure of that is pretty intense. So they all get under the fire trucks.
This is not a helicopter. This is like a military style like cargo plane.
Oh, right.
You know what I mean? With like four propellers. And like it is coming in. It looks, by the way, I just want to say this entire episode looks so expensive. This call looks so expensive. I think this is probably why they don't do more stuff with like actual firefighting, is because fire is expensive and infernos are expensive and firefighting scenes are expensive. Granted, it's a firefighter show, so that should be like the first place where they're allocating the budget. But they call in this giant cargo jet. This is, in my opinion, one of the show's most iconic moments for me. Like as far as like actual
this is a classic
earnest heroism. I love this so much.
We have Eddie inside the house knowing that this is coming. He gets into the bathtub and like puts his body over the kid to protect him. And again, it's like it's not made explicit by the show, but you can imagine, like, you know, Eddie has a little son and he's protecting this kid, and it's good. It's good. Again, my haters, this is an Eddie moment I like.
Period.
I love how I always address the haters as if my haters would be like listening to our podcast.
What, like your Taylor Swift?
Yeah.
But and then it dumps all of the water, like fucking like thousands of gallons of water. It is like intense. The torrent that like comes down on them, and it instantly extinguishes everything in like a mile radius, bro. And oh my god,
I thought this was funny.
Like,
when
incredible.
The plane was flying over, I took note of the fact that I love how we don't even see Tommy in this episode. Like, I guess they didn't want to have to pay the actor to appear. So we like see that Chimney's on the phone with him, and then this mysterious plane just flies over, but we never see the pilot. It's just kind of funny to me that it seems like they were like, okay,
little shot in the cockpit, like call back to this one like minor side character that we've only portrayed as racist and sexist, like dropping water.
I mean, they could have shown him, right? So it reads to me like production was like, oh, if we bring him in, that's like another recurring actor we have to pay. So let's just like skillfully find a way to have him be off screen the whole time.
Does that not just add to how iconic this moment is?
Oh, yeah.
Is that they didn't pay Lou Ferrigno Jr. for it?
Yeah. It's like Tommy's not even really a part of it.
Yeah.
But then there's kind of this moment of uncertainty of like, is Eddie okay? Is the kid okay? And then Eddie comes out carrying the kid from this like backlit door of the house. It's like an angel coming down from heaven.
Oh my god. It's so
beautiful.
Good. I'm surprised I haven't seen this shot in more fan cams, because it's like peak Eddie. It's like peak Eddie moment. This is a good
Eddie moment.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And, you know, the kid, they give him the little sternal rub and he's okay. He's awake. He's coughing. And Buck says to Eddie, what's up with the Spider-Man routine? Which I was thinking of the Spider-Buck thing.
The Spider-Buck
thing. Why is Spider-Buck a thing when Eddie is doing the Spider-Man stuff?
Well, it's because Eddie's always Daredevil. And so they ship like Daredevil Eddie and Spider-Buck.
Oh, yeah, that's the thing. When they're talking about what just happened, Eddie says that he prayed a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And Bobby says, looks like someone was listening.
Mm-hmm.
And then smash cut to Chimney, like in his house, arms raised, going, "You're welcome." Meaning Chimney is canonically God.
Yes.
You guys, Chimney is canonically God. Is that what we should name this episode?
Chimney is canonically God. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I feel like that works.
That works. I do like that he throws his hands up and then he like has to remind himself not to pop his stitches because he gets a little like sharp pain, like oh.
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, you're still recovering from being stabbed.
Yeah. I will say though, I do love just in general like the look of like wet pavement and grass. It reminds me so much of like home. So like when they come out from underneath the fire trucks after the water's been dropped, I was so happy. I'm like that like it just added to the scene for me. Like
right.
Oh, the West
Coast.
But
back at the dispatch, the FBI team is not really finding anything.
There's no virus.
Maddie comes in and she's like, hey, it turns out this outage was not the result of hackers. This little electrical fire that we responded to the other day that we thought was no big deal, that was actually the fire that took out this whole dispatch system. Yeah. And, the FBI team has to kind of be shown up by the dispatch, which once again feels like the culmination should have been that they were the villains, but I guess they didn't have enough time in the episode.
Terry gets to explain like what actually happened. He gets this little smug look on his face. It's a very triumphant moment for character for Terry.
And he sticks it to the FBI guys.
But I will say I totally agree with you that it seems like it should be them coming in with like the real FBI and Terry and Maddie put it all together themselves and like it's like these were the hackers. Yeah. I feel like it wouldn't even taken that much longer. It's like one little extra scene.
Yeah. They could have just like changed a couple scenes really to make it work. Yeah.
But like, I don't know.
But maybe they felt like it was too much.
It does feel a little it feels like a hat on a hat with everything else that happened in this episode. So I'm kind of happy they didn't go that route.
But it kind of feels like if they weren't going to go with the villain thing, they maybe didn't need these FBI characters at all, At
all.
Kind of feels like a waste of time.
That's why it feels weird. And that's why it feels like an echo of an earlier draft. Because they don't have anything else to do in this episode other than like sit around and be like, oh, we're the joint terrorism task force here to make sure no Russians are trying to steal your Bitcoin or something.
Like literally, what was the point of these characters in this episode if not to become the villains?
Well, at least we know for Yael it was to serve. So she did that.
Right.
She did that. She did that.
I think you mean they did that because Yael was non-binary. I don't know about this character.
No,
who
you're
looks
right.
Exactly like Yael,
you're right.
But they might also be non-binary.
No, Jane, you're right. Tell me if it's black or white. Do. We get a May Grant moment after that. Athena comes home and May Grant is there. They had to pay, a couple recurring actors. So they didn't want to pay Lou Ferrigno Jr. too.
Right. Athena comes home to May.
She's like, what happened to the Andersons' yard? Oh, right. We didn't even talk about this.
We forgot to mention something, which is that when Michael came to pick up Harry at the station, he said, like, why me and Harry had that fight that he told you about? Harry and, our neighbor friend kid decided to start a fire in the yard to try and put it out because he's so impressed with your firefighter skills. And, luckily no one was hurt, but the whole yard got messed up.
That is a very important detail in their conflict that we just completely did not talk about. And so I kind of feel bad for Michael now that we like completely roasted him and we didn't even talk about the core of their conflict.
Right. We have gone on tangents about literally everything in this episode, hopefully most of which will be cut by the time you guys hear it. But somehow we neglected to mention the core of the Michael and Bobby conflict.
Yeah.
Anyway. Athena comes in and she's like, what happened to the yard? And May's like, I don't know. You'll have to ask Harry. I wasn't here when it happened. And, Athena's like, I'm too tired to cook. Like, maybe we should order something. And May's like, Harry's got it covered. Harry comes out. He's made waffles. This is like a Harry thing.
Breakfast
that he
for
makes
dinner.
Waffles for Athena when he's trying to get out of trouble. Cute Harry thing. And Athena's like, what's going on? And Harry's like, I have something to tell you. And I think it cuts off, but, he's going to tell her about the bad thing he did today.
It made me want waffles. So it was a success in that regard. I love that Athena loves waffles. That gives me and her something to talk about if, we ever find herself in a fucking situation.
Very Leslie Knope of her.
We'll go to the diner sometime, you and me, Athena, and we'll just like hang out. back at dispatch, the day is winding down. They got everything back online. It's cool. The situation is handled. And now Maddie has to go on her date, and she didn't make a reservation.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't make one.
She just didn't get around to it. And she kind of implies that it's like, oh, I just didn't get the time. And Josh says, maybe it's because you're not ready. And they have this little heart-to-heart about, Maddie really wants to leave what happened to her behind her. But according to Josh, despite all her attempts at healing and moving past this, she maybe hasn't quite let herself just feel it yet.
Yeah.
So that's kind of her obstacle. I loved Josh's hamminess in this scene. Mm-hmm. Practically every line he says, he's just delivering. So when I say hammy, like, hammy means a certain thing to me where, like, it's not necessarily bad. It's similar to camp. It's like, it can be bad, it can be good, it can be ironic, it can be unironic. It's kind of a complex thing. And I find it pretty, like, neutral on Josh. Like, it doesn't make him a bad actor. It's just a thing that actor does.
Yeah, it's just a quality.
Is every line. He's kind of contorting his face and, like, making this really kind of cliche kind of emotional face.
I will say, though,
it's hard to describe over a podcast.
He does have a line that resonated with me, which it's a very sort of, I guess if you think about it, it is kind of a trite line, but it is, it is salient and it is true. It's very truthful. He says, pretending you're not hurt isn't the same as healing. And I don't know, I did kind of, I was listening to that and I'm like,
totally.
Weirdly enough, I did kind of need to hear that. So thank you, 911. Thank you, Josh.
Oh, yeah. I think the feeling he's expressing is very, very true. It's just the performance was kind of over the top, I thought. But again, that's what I love about Josh.
If we ever have Brian Safey on the show, I feel like we'll have to issue an apology to him at some point.
No, I was going to say, I don't think he would want to come on our show because of everything we've said about him.
But we go from that scene. It's a very nice sort of like short scene of their friendship to back in the fire station. They're transvestigating the broken ladder with this random New York, auto shop Italian named Marty.
Right.
Who
his name is Marty.
He has like a thick like Brooklyn accent or whatever. It's very out of place in Southern California.
And for the record, this character is being set up for being a larger part of a plot in a later episode. So like, stay tuned for that. That's, in my view, the only reason we're meeting Marty, the maintenance guy, right now.
Yeah.
I also just realized I wrote in my notes, Bobby at station with fire track maintenance guy Marty.
Period.
I think I meant fire truck, you guys.
Yeah. Yeah. I would guess.
It's like when you write aneurysm instead of embolism.
Little mistakes that change the meaning of the sentence, But Marty says he basically attributes the break in the ladder to budget cuts, to lack of maintenance, because the city doesn't want to allocate a lot of funds towards emergency services, because they're evil, I guess. And but Bobby says, quote, "The equipment breaks, we don't." And Marty says he should put that on a shirt. And it's like, yeah. Did they do tie-in merchandise with this line? That'd be kind of funny.
Why won't they release any merch,
Yeah. Where is the merch? I feel like that would be a really good opportunity for this show, actually, especially with how big its fandom is.
I had to make my own 118 shirt for my YouTube video. And it's like, you guys, you could just sell those yourself. How hard could it be?
I had to buy a Buddy shirt on Etsy from an independent seller with a unique design. Great shirt.
They should be selling Buddy shirts on abc.com.
They should. They'd make so much money. They're literally sitting on money by not doing this. Or even just like standard, like, the 118 shirt, or just like something with the logo. They don't even sell a logo tee or a hoodie. It's basic, bare basic stuff.
Come on.
It's got good ratings too. Come on. But Michael shows up.
Yes, Michael shows up, and he's here to apologize. He is like, I'm sorry I let my temper get the best of me earlier. So like we said, like, I do think we were supposed to think that Michael was in the wrong earlier. Basically, Michael, he's kind of coming from this place of insecurity. He feels like now that he's moved out and kind of is not around as much with his kids as he used to be, he worries that Michael is like the new, shiny new stepdad who's kind of taking all his kids' attention. And Bobby actually counters with, I think the reason Harry came to me today is not because he thinks of me as his new dad, but because he thinks of me as not his dad. He thinks of me as Buddy Bobby. He thinks of me as this friend that he can come to when he's having a problem, who won't tell on him. He's not really thinking of me as like a father figure. And that's really what differentiates our relationship from yours and Harry's.
Because Bobby's never been bad cop. We got like one little moment that Athena's mom pushed back on immedially, and
right.
presumably he never tried that shit again. And so like
he's too traumatized.
He's too traumatized, and so he's never been like the authority figure that lays down the law. He's always been like at most it feels like he's like the cool uncle or the nanny that takes care of the kids, and they love the Manny. In this, we sort of start to see some of Michael's insecurities come out, and he attributes part of his overblown reaction to the fact that, and this is a reveal, he and Glenn, bootlicker Glenn, broke up.
He and Glenn broke up. No more bald for bald.
No more bald for bald.
No more bald for bald. That's what I wrote in my notes. Sorry to all the bald guys out there.
It's so confusing sometimes to be a bald. But it's like he even says this in the episode, like how strange this is going to be to tell this to Athena, which is imagine leaving your wife for a man, and then that man leaves you. How do you even broach that conversation? Like, sorry, I was wrong.
Why is the Michael storyline like giving me the most comedy out of this episode? Oh man.
Oh my god, it's tragic.
Yeah, he expresses to Bobby that of course he's insecure about, I left Athena because of this relationship and now it didn't even work out. Even though to us it's clear that like, okay, you didn't leave Athena because you found somebody else, you left Athena because you were gay, right? It's like, it's just because your relationship with Glenn is over doesn't mean that you didn't have a good reason to end the marriage.
Imagine he goes back in the closet. It's like, Athena, can we try again?
It's like, I'm straight again.
That turned me back. It turned me back. I'm
that
back
was just
on.
A phase. That was just a phase.
Oh my god.
Bobby also expresses during this scene that he feels like he's kind of overcompensating to these kids because he's not Michael, and also because he's afraid that the kids will tell him that he's not their father. In his words, he's nobody's father. Again, he accidentally burnt up his kids in a fire, so, this is a sensitive topic for Bobby. And it's kind of a cute, like, Michael moment.
Michael moment.
Mobby moment.
Mobby moment. I thought you said mommy moment. I'm like, damn. Wow, this is like a turn.
Mobby / Michael. Michael is cute. I think Michael's the better name.
Michael is cute. I feel like Mobby. I feel like Chimney would have something to say about that, because you don't want to encroach on Chobby moment.
Exactly. Chimby, Chobby moment.
I love shipping Bobby with just random men.
I love it. It's one of my favorite things to do.
Wait, Chimney and Buck's ship name is Chuck. It's totally Chuck. I just put that together.
Ew, but Chimney and Buck, that feels like incestuous.
It does feel incestuous. But hey, White Lotus, But anyways, Bobby, basically, he needs to be a real parent going forward if he wants this to stop happening. And so they kind of end on this mutual understanding, and I'm back on Michael's side. Yeah. I like him again. I'm sorry, I do.
Yeah, no, this was a nice scene. We're so fickle about Michael.
I know.
But I liked that, like, as soon as Michael admits that he has broken up with Glenn, like, Bobby gets him some pie, and it's just, like, a cute moment. And by, like,
he's
at
an
the end
ally.
of the scene... Yeah, at the end of the scene, scene, Bobby's like, do you want to talk about that? And Michael's like, no. It's kind of like, it's fun to see their tentative friendship.
Yeah.
That is like, from what I remember, like of the Michael stuff on the show, like I said, it's not always the most compelling or the most like engrossing, but I think that his like budding friendship with Bobby, I think, is a fun thing, and just it's like nice to see like this blended family kind of start to work out, so I like that.
I will say, and this is like, I had a little moment watching this and thinking about it now where like it is like such like kind of a thing we take for granted now, watching the show as like fans of the show. It's so normal to us, but like I really love just how normalized and how casual everyone is in this show around gay people. I really do love that. It feels trite to say, but like it, like especially like nowadays when the LGBTs are under attack.
Yeah, we're seeing some rollback on like what we thought we could take for granted as social acceptance.
Yeah, and so I don't really want to take this moment for granted. It's like a subtly really good scene of like it's like casual allyship, it feels so cringe to say.
Yeah, just casual straight man being there for his gay friend.
Yeah, and I love that. I love seeing that because like I have straight guy friends that I adore, and I'm so normal around them, and they're so normal around me, and like I love just seeing that.
Wait, you're gay?
No, I'm this. No.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm gonna nip this in the bud right now. Absolutely,
of course
not. But I do, yeah. I really appreciated this. I don't know. I get a little in my feelings about it sometimes, but it's like, gay people literally exist. Like,
it's a very normalizing moment where it's just like, it's no big deal that Michael just broke up with his boyfriend. It's just like any other interaction, right?
Yeah. Bobby loves the gays. Bobby Nash, lover of all gays.
So from that, we go to Maddie and Chimney are having dinner. They're having just like a home-cooked meal at Chimney's place. Presumably, Chimney has learned to cook some since season 1, where he was just reheating Bobby's nachos.
He stole this from Bobby again. Oh my God, stop it.
No, that'd be so funny. That'd be so funny if even like the pasta they're eating in this scene was also a Bobby original.
At least with Maddie, he could be open about it.
Yeah. I wanted to say about this scene, fake looking red wine moment.
Yes.
They're drinking this red wine that looks like Kool-Aid, so jot that down.
This is the most cranberry juice looking red wine they've ever had on the show. Yeah. I'm sorry. It's
pretty bad.
It looks so sugary. I can't.
They're having a couple like kind of awkward interactions. Like at one point Chimney even kind of starts talking about the weather, and you're like, oh boy. And then they start to kind of have a heart-to-heart where finally Maddie's like, something comes up about sleep. Chimney's like, are you not sleeping well? And Maddie's like, no, I want to sleep all the time. Like I want to just like curl up in bed and like wait until the world feels normal again. And Chimney seems to kind of resonate with that. And he's like, you realize that they've both been through this intense trauma and they maybe haven't even really talked about it yet. Yeah. And it becomes clear that they haven't quite dealt with it fully. Yeah. And it's like they thought that they could just unpause this relationship that they were on the way to getting to before the Doug stuff happened. And they're starting to realize that actually like things are kind of irrevocably changed by what happened to them. And it's not going to be as easy as just like sitting down to another date. They maybe need to do a little more work on themselves and on each other and whatnot.
As much as they totally have feelings for each other, it's like they really need to like take some time to like process everything that happened. And so they can come back to each other and not pick up where they left off, because it's not going to be like that anymore. Obviously they were forged in the fire together of Doug now. But I think, sort of they leave it on this moment of we need a minute, and when we come back it's not going to be the same, but we can make something new with each other, because at the end of the day we both still really care about each other and we have feelings and we're on the same page. And it's very bittersweet, but it's also how necessary it is for both of them.
Yeah, they have this really heartbreaking exchange where I think it's Maddie says like something like it's never gonna be the same again, right? Or like we're never gonna be able to have whatever we were about to have. And I just thought that was so like real and so sad. This idea that like we know in hindsight that like they'll be fine, but like this idea in the moment that like, oh, we're never going to get back to that place again.
This must have been like 9/11 for Maddie shippers. Like 9/11.
I get, you know, you feel that way sometimes after experiencing like a big trauma or just like, I don't know, just like a change in your life sometimes where you kind of look at your past self and you're like, oh, it'll never be like that again, really. Yeah. And it's very tragic.
I guess you could say that relationship that they had is broken.
You could say that it's broken. That it's broken. Season 2, episode 14, Broken. And basically, we end this episode with you know, Maddie has one final, like, very bittersweet kiss, and they say, we're not saying goodbye, we just need a minute. And that's where we end the show.
And so I think in solidarity with 19-year-old me, 18-year-old me, I think we should just take like a 5.5-year break from watching this show and doing this podcast, and then we come back to it
right at like the most intense time and the show is airing,
and we come back to it just like as just fundamentally different people.
Well, I mean, you practiced what the episode preached. You said, we're not saying goodbye to 911. We just need a minute. And that minute was like 6 years, and then you came back. I thought this was a good episode. It's an interesting episode. My final thing I wrote in my notes was just, man, this episode has everything. And I think what I meant by that was like, it's got angst, it's got drama, it's got levity, it's got like crazy 911 calls.
Can you say that like Stefan?
This episode has everything. Drama, angst, levity, a guy getting all his houses exploded. Yeah.
I agree. It was like very much like quintessential classic 911 for me. Including the fact that like on top of everything it also has them actually fighting a fire.
Yeah. A rare occurrence.
It's like finish your drink if they actually fight a fire in the episode. So add that to the drinking game. I really like this episode, in part not just because of like what it means for me in my relationship with the show, but also just as a piece of sort of the show's puzzle. I think that this one has some really iconic moments. Every storyline is well done. Even if I'm feeling frustrated with certain characters at certain points, it's because the show wants me to, so it's effective in that way. And all in all, I think it's just a really rock solid episode of the show. Is it the best episode of the show that we've ever seen? No. Is it coming off of the best episode of the show up to that point? Yeah. So it's like a high bar. But I think for what it needed to do, like reestablishing the rhythm of the show and the status quo, I thought it was very successful, and I enjoyed it immensely. So good episode. What was the writer's name?
Juan Carlos Cotto.
Juan Carlos Cotto. Good job. I love you.
Good job.
I love you, Juan Carlos Cotto.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm very excited for the next episode we're covering, which is Ocean's 911. I remember loving this episode, so I'm very excited to get back into that.
Which one was this?
The bank robbery episode.
Oh, I love this episode. Oh, it's going to be so much fun.
We're going to have so much fun.
God, we're getting into like prime 911. We're getting into like this show's like golden age. I'm so excited.
I'm shocked by how close we are to the end of this season. Like, it's really just going by. I guess that's what we get for making a weekly podcast.
Oh my God.
And to everyone in our comments saying they want us to do like an episode for every episode of season 8, I'm sorry, but we just literally can't do that.
No, we're not doing that. Sorry.
That would be like making double the podcast we're making now. And me and Ryan were like just having a conversation about how we're already struggling just to like produce this podcast weekly. Like, it's kind of a lot of work. Like, you'd be surprised, which is why we want to start this Patreon one day. We just literally, the reason we haven't is that we are struggling to find time to record a bonus episode because like we don't have any time to record this podcast as it is. So, you know, I'm sorry. Maybe we'll do like an episode like encompassing all of season 8 once it's done airing, but like, no, we're not going to do an episode for every episode of season 8 that airs. It's just not feasible for us. We both have jobs, you know?
Yeah.
If you guys want to edit the episodes for us and record the episodes for us, you go ahead and do that.
Maybe we can get Justin to do that. I don't know. Does he have anything else going on? No, he does. I love him.
Oh,
We
he's
love
just
you,
moving
Justin.
to Japan. No big deal.
Just moving to Osaka. It's no big deal. No, I feel the same way, and so it's like it is hard to find time sometimes to make time in the schedule to do it while balancing everything else. Job, other projects, friends, like a social life, like
yeah, having no life.
I'm in a relationship now. Like it's hard to sometimes to it's so confusing sometimes to be a girl, you know? It is. But
totally.
We are making it work. We love this show. We love this podcast. We love you guys for listening. Please pray for Jane because she has to edit down this 3-hour recording session.
Christ. This is like our longest recording session ever. What the hell? Like, what happened?
Yeah, I don't think we've ever gone to 3 hours between just the two of us. I think we have with Justin once, but like, what did we talk about?
I don't know. I'm hoping that like hearing this recording session was 3 hours will come as a shock to all the listeners because I've managed to edit so much of it down. But I guess we'll see. So with that in mind, I don't want to let this go on for any longer. Happy Women's History Month.
Yes.
Happy get your pap smear and your prostate exam.
Yes.
Happy bald for bald, except not anymore.
Can I just say one thing? Because it's coming up on the deadline. And if I don't say this in this episode, I think some of our listeners might genuinely miss the window. Guys, pay your taxes.
Oh my God, so true.
Tax season is almost over.
Do it.
Please pay your taxes. Yeah. I just got my tax returns. Okay, I am very happy right now that I paid my taxes. So please pay your goddamn taxes.